Yo, what's going on? Hey, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. The over 16,000 subscribers to the channel. I'm very grateful. I'm Marcus. You're at the channel of the Debt Free Dad, where we're talking finances, financial takes, topics, current events, all of the good stuff. Daggone phone went off. I know that was jacked up, but we're talking financial takes, topics, attorney reactions, and current events. And I saw this, and this is an older story, but when I started to dive into the story, I started to see how one, it's a pretty terrible thing to have happen, and how could you avoid it, or how could you avoid going into this terrible pattern and this mishap? We're going to talk a little bit about parents who sue their child or vice versa. Normally, it's vice versa. The children sues the parents, then the parents file a countersuit. But I was looking at an article related to NBA superstar Luka Doncic. If you aren't familiar with Luka Doncic, he is an NBA player, foreign player who's probably one of the most recognizable faces in the NBA. He looks like a player, but the dude could hoop. But he had a lawsuit essentially suing his mom for use of a trademark. Luka started out overseas and he played professionally overseas at a very young age. I think he was like 15 or 16. So around age 17, he filed a trademark and got a patent for his name with the number 7. Doncic 7, because his number was 7. He knew he could hoop. He had a buzz. So everybody knew what it was. Everybody knew he was going to be an NBA talent. So he signed over the rights to that trademark to his mother so that she could use that trademark. Well, Luka ends up getting drafted in, I think, 2018 by the Hawks. The Hawks trade him to the Mavericks. The Mavericks have Luka Doncic. Now, as he's blowing up, he has his own shoe. He has a shoe deal with Nike. His net worth is about $25 million, but I think that's probably a little bit low for what Luke is making. But essentially, Luka wanted to control things related to his brand. And that makes sense. He's in the prime of his career. So Luka wanted his mother to stop using and stop having the rights of that trademark Doncic 7. So what happened? He ended up taking her to court over that trademark so she can give up and he can reclaim use of that trademark that he offered her, but we're not really sure what the terms were. Well, in January of this year, they actually came to some settlement agreement. But as I was doing research on Luka Doncic's case, and I came up and I found, man, there's a lot of celebrities who have terrible relationships with their parents, and they end up in court or they either end up firing their parents. And a lot of those relationships are not even repaired. And so this is a terrible trend. Now, I'm going to pull up this article because I want to talk about some of the cases that I saw that were probably really egregious and some of the celebrities who we saw in this particular situation. All right, so you see who topping the list, Beyonce. We see who topping the list, Beyonce. But okay, 15 celebrities who fired their parents or had intense legal drama with them. I mean, we could go back. I can remember when Eminem's mother was suing him because she said that Eminem was lying about his childhood and how he was raised. But we're going to take a look at maybe three of these pretty interesting. We got Beyonce, Rihanna, Usher. We got some of the biggest celebrities that you probably know of on this list. We're going to talk about it. In 2011, Beyonce fired her father, who had been her manager for over 15 years. During an interview with Oprah, she said the things that she's ever done. She shared while she loved her father, taking the next steps in her career was a part of growth. I'm going to go ahead and agree with that because I don't know if Matthew Knowles had the wherewithal to get Beyonce to the level that she get now. But maybe, but I don't know. I highly doubt that. But career progression and self growth might not have been the only reason. The year before Beyonce made the announcement, her father had a child with his mistress, Alexandra Wright. Beyonce's mom, Tina, filed for divorce from Matthew in 2011. Additionally, Live Nation claimed that Matthew had stolen money from Beyonce on her most recent tour, or otherwise taking funds that he was not entitled to. Beyonce ordered an audit that apparently confirmed Live Nation's finding, but her father has denied the allegations. The list. Look at, I mean, we could just go down the list of, I mean, it's really crazy. Aaron Carter, I think he was maybe 13 to say he actually tried to get emancipated from his parents at the age of 16. He alleges that his mother stole $100,000 from his bank account. Didn't go through with the emancipation. He ended up rehiring his mother. But later on, they asked him in an interview, like, if you could give some advice to your younger self, what would you say? And he said, he responded, I would tell you that you should have did it. You should have gotten emancipated. So I mean, I don't think that these relationships can ever get back to what they were. Well, they could, but the chances are very unlikely. Rihanna, her father, hey, he was finessing the game in 2019. Rihanna accused her father, Ronald, of misrepresenting a company they started without her knowledge, Fenty Entertainment. According to the lawsuit, Ronald sent out a press release stating that the company was created with his daughter and used these lies in a fraudulent effort to solicit millions of dollars from all this investor money for something that Rihanna isn't attached to. Rihanna said that Ronald tried to book her on a Latin American tour for $15 million and additional shows for $400,000. Apparently, Ronald also tried to register Fenty with the patent office, even though Rihanna held it for years. In 2001, she ended up dropping the lawsuit against her father. I mean, Leanne Rhymes. I mean, the list just goes. Hold on, let me see. I'm trying to say. Okay, this one actually had a happy ending. Essentially, she accused her father and her co-manager when she was 17 years old of stealing over $7 million over a 5-year period, giving themselves no interest loans, paying themselves more in royalties than she was actually making. Both people, business partner, denied the allegations. He filed a countersuit against his daughter. In 2001, they ended up settling. Throughout the years, she and her father actually ended up reconciling. And the quote they have here is, "There's so much more life ahead. To carry on the burden of hating someone, it's just not worth it." That's one of the very few that ended up well. Macaulay Culkin, parents stole a bunch of money from him. More so his father, not really his mom, but his father, Kit, strong strong arming people allegedly from it, ended up essentially removing his mother and his father from the account to try to protect a little bit of, well, not the little bit, but the monies that he had. Let's go down because I thought, of course, we had Usher. Usher was actually a unique case because he fired his mom, who served as his manager, married. Then he got a divorce. Then he rehired moms. Then he got remarried again, and now his current wife is his manager. I think this dude just like having women close to him in charge. But it all stems on money. Let's just take a look at a few other folks on this list. And you know, kid Janet says she actually wanted to be an entertainment lawyer, but Joe was like, "Nah, you're gonna entertain. You're gonna get out here and sing, and you're gonna dance and do all of that other good stuff." But it's just kind of crazy that size is so common. Is it a good thing if your kids are really successful to work for them? Gary Coleman was probably the worst. When he passed away, his family wanted to move him back to his family home. And when they saw he took him out of the will because he said they stole millions of dollars, he actually won a lawsuit. Once his family saw they took him out of the will, they was like, we don't want to bury him on the family property. It just gets crazy. This last one I wanted to touch bases on was Kobe Bryant, because this one is probably one of the more recent ones and more popular ones outside of the Luka Doncic one. that we kind of let off. 2013, Kobe's parents, Joe and Pamela, tried to auction off some of their son memorabilia, including high school uniforms and a pair of Laker championship rings he gifted him. When Kobe found out, he filed a lawsuit against his parents and the company that was selling his belongings. The company sued, said that Pamela was the owner of the items and that they had already given her advance of $450,000 to buy a new house for her and Joe. A settlement was reached that allowed less than 10% of the items to be auctioned. Joe and Pamela said in a statement, "We regret our actions and statements related to the Kobe Bryant auction memorabilia. We apologize for any misunderstanding and unintended pain we have caused our son and appreciate the financial support he has provided over the years." Kobe did not speak with his parents for years. In 2016, he told ESPN, "Later shit. I say to them, I'm going to buy you a very nice home." And their response is, "That's not good enough. They're just selling my shit." Like, money, it make everything terrible. Kobe was reportedly repairing his relationship with his parents soon before he died. And a former had recently saw Kobe and his father hugging it out at a basketball camp, and they appeared to be good. But there's clearly some not good things going on when it comes to parents managing their children's career, handling their money, serving as their managers. I don't know. My thought is, like, okay, my son makes music. Okay, he makes he make money every month streaming his music on all of the platforms. He's actually in the process of shooting the music video. I personally don't think that I would ever want to manage my son or do anything related to his career, especially if it takes off on a full-time basis. I just think that that's a problem that happen. Um, the pattern is the same. We see in all of these cases, most times it was a child who was the person making the income. The child alleges that the parent either misappropriated money, stole from them, did something that wasn't above board. It was a lawsuit. And I don't know. Suing somebody is probably. I've seen people get in fistfights and that relationship heals faster than a damn lawsuit. When you file a lawsuit against somebody and they put in their time and effort and money having to defend it, that's a hard ass hurdle to come by. And I personally don't think that. How can I put this? I'm not going to say, like, me. I feel fairly confident that I would never do anything to harm the interest of my son. But I think a lot of these start out, but once you start seeing $100,000 hit the account, millions of dollars hit account, I think a lot of people get greedy. A lot of people try to peel a little bit off the top, and in doing that, I think that's where people have this lapse in judgment, where they start doing the wrong thing. I appreciate you tuning in too, Demetri. I appreciate it, bro. I think that greed is what causes this to happen more often than that. I just don't think it's something that is conducive. And I know me, I wouldn't do it. Now, would I help my son? Yeah. Would I? This contracts give him. I would do that, but I don't think I would ever want to do something where 100% of my income is solely reliant on the service that I provide to my son. I think that is where you kind of just have a room for a big problem occurring. Even if you don't misappropriate things, I can see where a situation where, let's say, you're the manager for your son or daughter, y'all have a 5-7 year run that's great, and year 8-9, they're not. As a parent, you're going to catch some of that smoke. You're going to catch some of that smoke because the job as the manager, the agent, that person is to keep this person relevant, to make sure they stay active, to make sure they have continuous streams coming in from the acting skill, the music skill set. And if you can't do that, you don't think that your child is going to have some type of disdain for you or may potentially blame you for them falling off, whether or not it's true. And then the other thing you got to think, when children are in a business and they're making such money young, they can be influenced by so many different ways. So a lot of times that biggest influence is going to be a parent, but that's not going to last forever. And once they start listening, even if you're doing everything above board, once they start listening to outside influences, you'll have a big problem. So for me, hey, I would advise my son, I would help my son with a lot of things, but I never put myself to be his, hey, I'm going to be your manager or your agent or something to that effect. No, we're going to get somebody who has experience in this area to do it. Now, of course, I'm going to talk because that's what my job is, but you got to get somebody who has the experience, who has the skill set to do it, in my opinion. And me making 100% of my income working for my child or helping them out, even though I'm helping them, that's just not something that I would want to do because I think the reward does not outweigh the risk of potential harm that could happen with that relationship. Now, the bigger question is, let's say this situation happens, right? Because I think I'm pretty sure what my position is. Like Kobe Bryant situation, hell, Goldman's situation, Rihanna's situation. If this relationship, business relationship between child and parent falls off, the question is, who bears the responsibility for making that relationship right or doing whatever they need to do to fix that relationship? I mean, child is a minor, 16, 17, 100% mom, dad, parent, whoever it is, the responsibility is on you to make that situation right with the child. But I would just be honest. I think 90% of the time, the responsibility to that relationship falls solely on the parent because the parent is the one who was put in the position of trust. The parent is the one who probably more often than not abused that position of trust. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do just to make it right. If I'm representing my son and he's in the music industry and we had a good run for 5 years, with if I'm representing him or his manager 4 times, if he made multi millions, of course I probably made some millions because that's just how it's a lot of money coming in. It is what it is. Even if you're doing everything the right way, the manager is going to make some millions off of the back of the talent. That's just kind of how it goes. If my son were to say, "Oh, I got an audit done and it looks like this amount of money is short, you stole it from me." Me personally, I would rather pay that money even if I didn't, just to make sure the relationship stays intact. I mean, I feel like the responsibility to make that shit right falls mostly on the parent. And I think it's crazy that you got people who are grown ass adults who aren't speaking to their parents over how money was mismanaged 20 years. And that leads to the last point because I was having this conversation, and I think Joe Jackson is the perfect example. But I can think of a lot of celebrities: Joe Jackson, Floyd Mayweather Sr. I can't think of Roy Jones' fathers, but a lot of times these entertainers who parents really push them hard, who really push them hard. What are your thoughts on, like Janet Jackson said she wanted to be an entertainment attorney, but her father realized she had talent and was like, "No, you're going to be an entertainer." So she really didn't do what she wanted to do. She pushed by her father. Is if let's take out, let's say there's no abuse going on. Not saying abuse was going on, but let's take out abuse. Let's say your child is 6'7" and appears to be a basketball prodigy. And so you know, on them kind of, let's practice, let's do this, let's do that. Your son who is 6'7", he may want to be a damn archaeologist, but you see this talent, you know he has this skill, he has all the God-given talent. So you push, you push, you push, you push. At what point is the pressure and the lack of, I guess, the child having freedom to do what they want to do worth it if they are successful in what the parent pushed them in. Like, yeah, Janet Jackson could have been an entertainment lawyer, but for Joe Jackson pushing her to do entertainment, she wouldn't be the pop icon that she is today. You know? Again, we're gonna take out abuse, but we're gonna take out no. We're not, and I'm not saying they had any abuse, but we're not saying like something crazy, like they were slave driving them. Just, hey, I want you to do this. I'm gonna put towards this and that, focus on anything else. If that kid ultimately becomes successful in that endeavor, I mean, wasn't it really worth it at the end of the day? Like, I don't know. I can't, like, that would be like Floyd Mayweather saying, my father pushed me too hard as a kid because I wanted to be a scientist. Shut up, dude. Floyd Mayweather, you got multi-millions of dollars. You have a great life that you probably never would have achieved had you went to school to become a scientist. So I feel like sometimes in those situations, people have to recognize to take the good with the bad. It is what it is. What's going on? I appreciate tuning in. But I don't know. I just think it's a terrible pattern of that we see too often, and I think this article depicts it. Kobe Bryant and his parents ruined relationship over money and management. I mean, the list goes on and on. Gary Coleman died not speaking to his parents, ruined relationship over money. I mean, it's just kind of crazy, and probably I hate to say this, it probably Drew Barrymore, another one on the list, famous actor. We already talked about Janet on the list. Relationship with her father kind of strained because of management and money and different decisions. I mean, it just goes on and on. And I'm probably going to err on the side of I wouldn't want to put myself in a position where 100% of my income is based on me doing a job for my son or daughter, no matter how fucking successful they are, because I just think it's a recipe for disaster. Now, I'm not saying I wouldn't be active. Like I said, I'm looking at contracts. I'm on the manager's ass. Like, hey, nah, I'm crossing T's and dotting I's. That's what my job is. But I just couldn't do something full time because I think the reward of me doing that doesn't outweigh the risk of where a situation like that would likely go. Look, Usher and his moms had fell off. I mean, the list just goes on and on of celebrities. What's the TV show she was on? I can't even think of the show. Modern Family. She was on Modern Family. Like, literally, it's probably going to end fucking bad if you're trying to manage your child and do all that. I think that Rihanna and her dad is just the best thing to do is stay hands off. Stay hands off, because eventually, when you start seeing all that money go in, I don't think that they can resist the greed. Everybody would like to think that they can resist the greed, but you won't be able to do it. You won't be able to do it. It's impossible. I think it's impossible. Like, the only continue well, no, I guess a billionaire in theory could be content, but I just think that the greed and the speed that money comes in from the entertainment industry is so fast that that relationship between parent and child is going to be tainted no matter how you. Because somebody gonna get greedy. It may not be you, parent. It may be the child saying, "Hey, I'm paying you too much money to manage me, mom or dad," or it may be vice versa. It may be mom or dad trying to siphon a couple of extra racks, a couple extra bands, a couple extra M's off the top. Either way, the greed is just too big, and eventually it's going to be a problem. And I think the other thing is children have to learn how to manage their money and keep an eye on their business on their own. And I tell you a prime example. I remember this summer I was really like proud of my son because he saved like his first $1,000, right? And I was like, man, dude, you got $1,000. You know how old I was? I was older than you when I saved my first $1,000. So he got his first $1,000. So what I explained to him was, I said, look, you always want to just keep this $1,000 stashed away just to have it just in case, right? I'm trying to get him in that mindset early. Now, this is separate. He has an account that he invests in, that he put a little bit of money in every month. But this is just kind of his emergency fund. And as a teenager, $1,000 emergency fund, you ain't gonna have no emergencies because all your emergencies they gonna fall on dad's shoulders. That's just kind of how it goes. But I told him, I was like, hey, make sure you save up that money. Always keep that $1,000 there. Now he does get allowance. Now my son gets, I don't know, like $50 every 2 weeks. Now I know with inflation, hey, that's not a lot of money, but he gets $50 every 2 weeks, right? But in addition to that, when the weather's warm, he's cutting grass. So he's doing all these other things to make money. And at first, when he got his allowance or he got paid from doing a job, he never really budgets that money unless it's something that he wants. If it's something he wants, he'll be real strategic with it and but if he's not really saving for nothing, he just kind of, oh, I went out with my friends and bought something to eat. And I mean, think about it. $25 buying something to eat, you can get one meal at a cheap ass restaurant and it's a wrap. It's gone. And so he'll get his allowance, he'll make his money doing his little side hustles, and he won't budget that money. And so here comes the weekend, he wants to do something and he doesn't have any money available. So at first, me trying to impart structure, I would be like, well, you ran out of money. You don't have any money to do anything. So that's just on you. You got to figure it out. Because I wouldn't let him touch that $1,000 that he kind of had set aside. But I've actually changed my mind with that. And so if he doesn't budget his money, that's a him problem. And if he wants to go take money out of his savings account and move it to his checking so he can do whatever he want to do, I'm gonna go ahead and let him do it. So I sit back and watch and I slowly see it dwindling down. It went from $1,000 to like 900 to 800 to 700 to like 600. Right now, he think he's slick because he's like, "Oh man, the summertime is going to be here. I'm gonna get my job. I'm gonna be able to replenish that," which is true. But he's building a bad habit. So because I think that children have to learn how to manage their own finances separate and apart from their parents, I just left it alone. I see that account dwindling down. And I was like, when he'll really get the lesson on keeping money in his bank account, he'll really get that lesson on spending all his money in his saving account and he wants something or needs something and don't have it. So me, as the loving father I am, to make this a teachable moment plus something I can find entertaining, I'm gonna go ahead and let him continue doing what he's doing. And if he depletes that account to the point where, hey, he doesn't have money to do anything, you know what he's gonna be doing? Not a damn thing, because that's what he's gonna have money for. You don't got nothing, you can't do nothing. But I say that story to say that even when parents are managing their children's business and it's a successful business, ultimately the greed is going to take over on one side or the other. And even if the greed doesn't take over, sooner or later, I feel like that child is going to either want that independence because they're going to kind of feel like mom or dad has their thumb over me and is controlling everything. So they're either going to want it, or mom or dad, if you really being real with yourself, going to have to defer and relinquish that protection you're giving them so that they can make those decisions. Because unfortunately, most people don't make. I don't know. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I don't think most people learn from watching the mistakes of others. I think most people learn from getting kicked in the ass and learning the hard way. That's just my point of view. Like, like my son, he's indicative of the firstborn child, because I think the firstborn child normally learns not from seeing somebody else do it or being told what to do. They normally learn the hard way because they're the firstborn child. Secondborn child, they see the firstborn child mess up all the time, so they say, "Oh man, I'm not doing that because I know that didn't end well for him or her." So I think it works the same way when you're talking about finances, when you're talking about business, when you're talking about a relationship with just business in general. I'm gonna be honest, I generally frown on business with family as a whole across the board. My general rule is, and it could be done, but you have to have a relationship that you think are conducive to having a real business relationship. I don't have that with Hmm, I'm thinking. And maybe two or three people in my family who I'd be willing to do that. Aunt, some cousins, but no, it's the same concept I used to see all the time that brothers and sisters, siblings who get a place together and live together. And I used to think that was cool. I used to be like, oh man, that's so cool. Me and my brother couldn't do it. It would be a problem. So I generally am not a proponent of family and business. It just doesn't work well. I've done it and it was successful. Me and my father had a business venture, and that thing lasted for 5, 6, 7 years, and it was very successful. But it took a while because how could I put this? It was like conflicting interest. Okay, my father was in the trucking business, so he had a lot of institutional knowledge, right? But at this time, I was in law school, and just kind of that legal knowledge of understanding the contracts, the negotiation, the terms, limiting the risk of the company. And so it was weird because it was a situation where there was a little bit of a headbutt because he started out with all the institutional knowledge. He kind of had the control, and because he had to guide me in what to do. But as I got experience in it, and I got experience, so I started to get my institutional knowledge up, but I also got the knowledge of the law, of contracts, of business, uh, of open businesses, of business associations, of tax law. When I started to get all of that stuff, my knowledge base, I felt, kind of got a little bit higher than his, and it was kind of a point of contention. It really got to a point where my pops was cool, and he just was like, you know what, hey, you've been doing this a while. I'm gonna entrust you with it. I'm gonna pass it off to you. Do what you need to do. Do your thing. I'm gonna run this aspect. You run that aspect. And it ended up working out well like that once he kind of let go the reins and let me kind of control it unilaterally. So he was able to handle the trucking vehicle side, driver side. I was able to handle the freight brokerage, negotiating the deals between shippers and receivers and all of that other stuff. And it ended up working out. But it was a point where everything kind of collided and we were kind of butting heads a little bit because he had all the knowledge and I had limited knowledge, plus some other stuff. I probably got a little big headed, and him being a dad, he probably wanted to do what dads and parents do: protect their child, make sure they there to guide them. And I was kind of like, nah, bro, I got this. Take the training wheels off. And fortunately for me, it didn't end up in litigation. Nobody sued nobody, but it was I don't know. It was kind of wild, but it worked out. But I wouldn't recommend doing it. I probably honestly wouldn't do it again. I When it comes to family and business, I won't rent a rental property to a family member. Everybody y'all out there are investing in real estate, have real estate. I will never, I wouldn't do it. I don't care what the situation is, what the facts and circumstances are. I am not renting out any of my rental properties to a family member. And if the one situation where I would, because I normally use a property manager company to manage everything, if they did rent it out, they would have no clue that I owned it. I just seen those situations go bad. You renting out to a family member, anytime there's a familiar relationship in the business, the reward is never worth the potential risk if it goes bad. I've seen so many times someone who's a real estate investor, they rent, oh, I'm gonna rent my house to my cousin because he's going to school down there, or my niece is going to school down there. So she can have a place to stay. I give her a little discount on the rent. And you already know what happened. When you got family or friends, they gonna expect a discount. They're gonna think that they could pay the rent late. They're gonna think that the rules don't apply to them. And I don't know about y'all, but I don't have the time and bandwidth. I can't do it. The people who will respect you as a business entity are people who knows you as a businessman or a businesswoman. People who know me from around the way, nah, like no. Nobody I knew, nobody I know, period, I don't probably want to. I wouldn't rent any property to. I don't know if y'all would do that, but I probably wouldn't rent any property to anyone that I know. Period, just because the propensity for it going turning into a shit show is relatively high. Now I know some very responsible people who wouldn't do that, but I'm on the side of no. When we're doing business, let's just keep it business. Let's have a hand-to-hand business transaction. Let's keep everything at arm's length so we don't have no intermingling of the relationships. I don't want to be your landlord and go hang out with you and your I'm hanging out with you and your wife. We on ducks on Saturday and Sunday, but Monday the rent is due. No, because if something go bad, it's gonna be a problem for everybody. I'm like, which how you late on the rent, bro? We just went out to the restaurant. Why the hell you come to the restaurant with us if you couldn't pay the rent? Like, it's gonna go bad. So be very cautious of intermingling business and family. It's a bad trend, especially when you have children and parents. But I think it's just a matter of the greed is going to take over on one side, and ultimately that child is going to want to remove the training wheels and going to want to drive that ship on your own. And you can't fight it, parents. You gotta let them ride the bike on their own, and if they fall and bust their ass and scrape themselves up, it is what it is. That's it for this video. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Hey, if you enjoyed this, check out the video that's on the screen. That's for the replay value, folks. There's going to be more content related to finance and attorney reactions.